Okay, here we are. We are back for another awesome episode of the HomeBod podcast. We have a very special guest, Dr. Joe, with us today. He is bringing with him a wealth of knowledge of all kinds of the things that I don't know about you, Ash, but I'm not a fan of drugs and medicine. And I like to kind of do things the more natural.
Yes.
If we can avoid it way. I mean, if I'm super sick or my kids, got broken legs and arms, I mean, these things are unavoidable, but I'm a big fan of just eating good food and being healthy all the way around. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Dr. Joe, tell us who you are.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me. I'm really happy to be here today, and I think we'll enjoy our conversation just from the little bit that we've exchanged back and forth. But I'm Dr. Joe, and my company is Superior Toxicology and Wellness. And what I like to present is a very practical, achievable approach for when somebody wakes up, looks in the mirror, and realizes that, oh my God, who is that fat person I'm staring at? And what do I do from here? So, my practical advice blends from, on the food front, the average human eats about 4 times more than they really need to exist. So, my practical application of advice there is eat half.
Yep.
Mostly plants, and you're going to be okay. And then the other side of things is hydration. Yeah. If you're drinking good water, which I guarantee you more times than not is not tap water. If you're drinking good water, you're being good to your body.
Yeah.
And then the third thing you really absolutely need a lot of is enough rest.
Yep.
And you told me your demographic is probably those that burn the candle on all ends. So they're eating what they can grab, and they hardly ever drink enough water, probably have a chronic headache, and they don't sleep.
Right.
So with that, I would lead. I would lead with those little pieces of advice.
But claiming all of the above.
Yeah. She texts me at all kinds of hours that she made all.
I'm guilty of it too.
I really hope you're sleeping, but you don't have to respond right now.
I've been running my own business for the better part of the last 2 decades, and before that, when I was working for someone else, I always had side irons in the fire. Yep. I can't remember the time where I only did one thing, just because, I call myself a serial entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. And, most people could describe that as serial entrepreneur because it's mostly shitty every day.
Well, I'll tell you what, I mean, our crew knows that I'm always preaching about hydration and sleep and eating well and not overeating. And it's fascinating that those seem so simple.
They are simple.
And most people know it, but
hardly anyone follows it.
They just don't.
Because there's more important things to think about, and it's just.
And it just goes to show the super strong emotional tie that food has, and we can. God. I mean, it's been an absolute journey for me to switch over to, first of all, recognize that I have an emotional tie, so I emotionally eat, and it's nothing good or healthy. And I do it at both ends. If I'm
from the middle of the supermarket is your favorite, right?
Oh my gosh, yes.
She's more like the bakery department.
Happy, I feel like I need to celebrate, and so I go eat junk food. But if I'm super stressed or depressed, then I'm like, I need my comfort foods. And so
remember, eat half and mostly plants.
Right. Right. So this is an interesting topic to get into, simply because it's I think the number one question I get in the professional organizing world is this whole concept of waking up one morning, looking around the house and going, oh my gosh,
how did I get here?
Mm-hmm. How do I even start? I am so overwhelmed.
Absolutely.
And it's one thing to say, okay, eat half, get some sleep. But is there one thing that you can say, if you do nothing else, start here?
You got to take the first step. You got to take the first step. You need to decide that you want command of your own health and wellness again. And, I've been doing toxicology.
Can I get an amen?
I've been doing toxicology for 30 years. I have experience in human exposure to drugs and to chemicals and to microbials. So microbials is things like what the TV's telling us all to be afraid of right now. Just that one virus, but there's a dozen other viruses that are just like it. So we don't have to specialize on one virus. Let's be afraid of all of them, or not,
Or
because
not.
of our immune system.
Oh,
But my toxicological approach also says everything in moderation. And most people can say right away, everything in moderation is a bunch of crap. Because if you are on a diet and you're thinking portion control is going to get you there, it's going to get you a little bit there, but it's not going to get you all the way there.
Right.
And if you eliminate, you guys know you have 3 basic food groups. You got protein, you got carbohydrates, and you got fats.
Yep.
And you can limit those, and that'll get you a little bit there, but it won't get you all the way there.
Nope.
I just got through reading a book called The Obesity Code. I don't know if you guys have heard of that one.
I've heard it. I haven't read it yet.
Yeah. The Obesity Code, it talks about why people are fat and why diets don't work. If you want to know, read this book. It's all about.
He's got a few other resources that I've read and that YouTube things that I've watched of his that are really informative.
Sustained insulin levels.
Yeah.
So that diet that says eat smaller meals more often, that's what comes out of the south end of a horse walking north too. Because all that does is it keeps your insulin levels at a level that's elevated all day long. And the key is to give your body gaps of low insulin levels. And you do that by intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting is one of the coolest things to come along in a while.
I have never had more success than when I started intermittent fasting.
Yeah. And there's different ways to do it. Obviously, the easiest step one that most people can do is try to eat dinner between, 5 and 6 or 7 p.m. at night. And then don't eat breakfast until you absolutely have to. If that's 7 a.m., great. If that's 9 a.m., even better. If that's 11 a.m., perfect. If you can make it till 1 p.m. and you give your body that sustained low level of insulin in your bloodstream, you're going to start battling the insulin resistance that you build over time, because of the glycemic index of all these foods. And that's just a fancy way of saying what happens to your insulin levels when you eat whatever it is that you eat. But
you do have to be careful though, especially as women with intermittent fasting, because our hormones don't necessarily always love it.
Yeah.
And especially women with unhealthy relationships with food, previous eating disorders, that kind of thing. Intermittent fasting can absolutely backfire. So while I agree there's a time and a place for it, and I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole with you.
No worries.
It's beneficial for some, but we have to be super careful.
And it's funny that you say that. I think of life as a normal distribution, and doing your homeschooling, you're probably not in statistics yet, but normal distribution is that normal curve where you got 80% of the people 2 standard deviations away from the mean right there. Right. But there's always those tails. And everything that you refer to, you have hyper exposures, or you have hyper reactors, and you have hypo reactors. Yep. And that's like that with drugs too. It's like you can talk to your friends, and when they say they have a headache, do they take 1 ibuprofen, or do they take 4 ibuprofen, or do they go by the bottle and take 2? The people that take 4 probably need a little bit more drug to get the desired effect. The people that take 1 are probably hyper responders. Mm-hmm. And it's not just with ibuprofen, it's with everything across the board. And in the United States, the physicians practice to the mean.
Well, of course. Yeah.
All of those doses are for the masses, for most people. Right. And that's why people need to grab a hold of their wellness and be their own best advocate.
Totally agree.
Nobody knows yourself better than you.
Exactly. I was actually having a conversation this morning at the gym about, eating healthy and that sort of thing. And this gal I was talking to, she's like, it's hard to eat clean because, it feels like I have to give up stuff, or like my family's having pizza and I can't have it. I have to eat chicken and broccoli or whatever. And so we started discussing the fact that for me, I was like, I just don't want it. Like, it grosses me out to think of eating a big greasy burger. She's like, oh, I wish I could get there. And I said, it's a mindset thing. I was at a place where I found out I shifted into clean eating because that's what my body needed. And I was determined to make it work. Was it easy? Was it fun? Absolutely not in the beginning. But when you do it for a while and then you go
see
back
results
and you go back and you
it
have
makes you
that
feel
greasy
horrible.
burger and you feel horrendous. I mean, I told her, I said, it gags me to think of eating that because I know what I'll feel like. I can feel
my chiropractor buddy used to call them cheat days. He's changed it to toxic days.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because you just, you foul your whole system.
It just makes you feel like garbage. It
does. It absolutely does.
She was like, I could see kind of the wheels turning. And I said, it's just a mindset thing. Like you have to, it's not about, I can't have, or
the hardest territory to get the inertia over is the 6 inches between your ears.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
And
like
the other
said,
thing I tell people, is, days are going to be different. Some days are going to be awesome. Some days are going to be good. Some days are going to be bad. Some days are going to be horrible. But you got to wake up the next day and say, I got to be better than I was yesterday. And that's the mindset. And if you can do that, then you have the mental space to start making other little changes. If you try to change too much at once, you're destined to fail.
Right. Oh, amen. I am so glad that you said that.
I was just going to say, I can hear Ashley saying, that's
oh
what
my
I
gosh.
Say.
in recent trends with organizing, the idea is you get in and you do it all at the same time. You do the entire house. And I cannot believe the stress that goes into that.
And what happens then? It's that emotional eating.
Exactly. And they get, really, really excited and gung ho. And yes, I can do this. And then they get halfway through and realize that, when you're untying a knot, it's going to swell and get bigger before you start really unraveling it.
That's right.
And they get to this swollen point and they freak out and say, okay, I'm done.
And this time of year is even worse. From Halloween to Valentine's Day is fat season. I mean, the food industry has designed to fatten humans between Halloween and Thanksgiving and Valentine's Day. And then they throw in St. Patrick's Day. If that wasn't enough, then you get back on the alcohol. I know a lot of people that go dry January because the holidays are just too much for them. And it's like, I go back to the toxicology and say everything in moderation there. I like having my beers with my buds. And the problem is I got a lot of buds.
Yeah. I will say too, this is part of the conversation I had today. Have you read the book In Defense of Food?
I have not read that one.
It's interesting. And that's basically the premise of it. Not just the holidays, but it's the way that the food industry has shifted since the 60s to feed the masses in highest caloric per bite
sugar
things.
Yeah. Wow. Everything is packed with sugar. Yeah, exactly. And the farmlands are depleted in nutrients. So
that's what it's about.
The ingredients that are grown since the end of World War II to the present are so much less nutritious than they were way back when. And then the processing goes up, and processing is really one of the worst things going, because that's why you say eat mostly plants, that's whole foods, that's raw foods. And when you get away from all of the sugar that's loaded up in processed foods, and then one day you have a normal dinner, and for dessert you grab a piece of fruit, and you realize nature's sweetness is more than enough.
Yes.
But it takes a lot to get there.
Yes.
And the people that fall off and go back, and that Halloween bowl of candy is just too, it's there. It's like you get one, you give one away for trick or treat. You get one, you give away for trick or treat. That's why you just can't have it in the house.
Yeah. Amen.
If you want ice cream so bad that you have to get in the car and go to Safeway to get it, go ahead and do it. But if you want ice cream so bad that it's gone an hour after you buy it, you got to do some more thinking about that situation.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, with my sugar addiction, it's to the point where I recognized that I was hiding it and that I was sneaking it. And so it was one of those where I have gotten to a point where if I want it so badly that I am willing to eat it in front of my family, in front of my husband, then gosh darn it, I'm going to own it and I'm going to eat it.
Absolutely.
Because there's a level of that accountability there.
Isn't that interesting? Ashley, that's really interesting to me, because that's not unlike behavior that you would see of an addict of another substance.
No, absolutely not. They try to hide it forever.
Yeah.
And it could be anything. I mean, it could be tobacco. It could be alcohol. It could be, like, could be sex.
Yeah.
It could be any number of things. 3 years ago, I think I was addicted to Red Bull.
I
Talk
wouldn't
about
doubt
something
it.
that'll kill you. And then one day my mom just said to me, she said, she read an article about a healthy guy about my age, about my stats, that he dropped dead of a cardiac event. And she
Yep.
said, will you please stop drinking that? So I did. It took me a while because that stuff is awful. But I got off of Red Bull by drinking Coke.
Uh-oh.
And then I got off of Coke by drinking green tea and caffeinated water. Green tea is awesome. I love
green
it.
tea is amazing. And if
I
you're
drink matcha, the Japanese green tea.
If you're going to overdo it, I just started that myself. I just jumped on the matcha train.
And they tell you to put a teaspoon of it in smoothies and stuff. I make up a pitcher of it, brew it hot, let it steep, put it in the fridge, and I pour off of that until it's gone. So I drink it cold.
I just drink a mug in the afternoon when I'm starting to get
mine's
tired.
First thing in the morning.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
But I'm off of Red Bull, and I think my Coke is down to maybe one every 2 or 3 weeks, and it's usually when I'm
everything
out.
In moderation, that's fine.
Yeah. But
it's interesting though. I've noticed a lot of, if you can transfer, basically that's what you did, right? You transferred your
and step down and step down and step down.
I think a lot of people don't recognize that. They don't recognize that that's a possibility.
They don't even recognize it's a choice.
They think,
I found a
have
product,
to just get off of sugar, but then they go, I mean, I had a client, I've talked about this client before, but she was so addicted that when I asked her to stop for just 2 weeks, she went through full on withdrawal. She got very ill, and she finally just said, she fired herself. She's like, I can't work with you because I can't kick this addiction. And I know it's not you, it's me, and she's like, I'm not willing to give up my addiction. And so there's no point in us working together, which made me sad, but I can't make you give up your addiction. No. But, like Ashley said, is how healthy is that? If you can bring it out in the open,
exactly.
light on it.
And what really drove me, I have a 19-year-old son who is a high-level hockey player. He's been out of the house since he was 16, living in other people's houses, different places, playing hockey. The first season was 100 miles away, so he came home a little bit. The next 2 seasons, we live in Colorado. He was playing in Washington State, and now he's playing in New Hampshire. Wow. But all the gyms, all the ice rinks, everything got closed down. So he came home last March, and he was home from March to August. Wonderful. The wife and I loved having him home. And he would just absolutely get on my case, something fierce, every single time I grab for anything but water.
I love it.
And he's just like, Dad, drink water, and that's what he does. He drinks nothing but water. And, he's just under 200 pounds, just under 6 feet tall. He's probably sitting around 7 or 8% body fat, so he looks at what he has coming for him. But he is in his prime. He's an elite athlete. And he says, Dad, you don't need the rest of that garbage. It's garbage. Drink water. And if you do your step downs, you find replacement products. You can get off of Red Bull using your Coke. You get off of Coke using green tea. And then you can minimize your green tea just using water. Yeah. And I get around the tap water. I'm going to tell you, I'd get nothing out of this, but one of the best water filters you can have is called Zero Water. And you can pick it up on Amazon, at Target, at Walmart, anything. It costs about $40. And I think it's like a 7-stage water filter that takes all kinds of stuff out of your tap water.
Interesting.
And it sells it with a total dissolved solids meter that every once in a while you put in the water. You check your tap water, so you know what baseline is. You check your filtered water. And if it's reading over a number that they tell you, you're supposed to replace the filter. You can totally tell the difference in taste between tap water and water that goes through the Zero Water filter. Most fridges have a carbon filter now. That's one of the 7 things that the Zero Water filter takes. That's something everybody can do.
Yep.
And toxicologically, we're living in a soup of exposure to toxins. They're in the water, they're in the food, they're in the air, and they're even environmental, like you mentioned, like the electromagnetic fields and everything that's going on. We are living in a toxic exposure, and our cells only have 1 bucket of cellular defense stuff, and you got to keep feeding that. And that's good nutrition. That's good hydration. That's enough rest. And that's making sure if you're on supplements, they're the right supplements, and your body is able to get that stuff out of those supplements. And I have one of those, I'll tell you in a little bit, but, if you can eliminate one thing that you're exposed to every day, you're going to be better off. So if everybody goes and gets a water filter, you're going to eliminate all that garbage that's in the tap water. all of the disinfection byproducts, because they disinfect at the treatment plant, and then they run it through pipes that have all kinds of biofilm in it, all kinds of microbes in it, and they're right back in the water.
So that can be overwhelming, I think, a lot of times.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, I mean, obviously, you know, in a perfect world, we would all eat organic, grass-fed, cage-free, happy chickens, and, you know, but at the end of the day, I do think we all have to make choices that
absolutely.
that allow us to successfully implement things in our lifestyle, and maybe not even based around finances. Like money is no object. It's still a pain in the butt sometimes to get, you know, the best of the best, whatever.
Totally.
But there are things like that. So what other, you know, practical things like that, like a water filter, what else do you suggest that we can do to eliminate those toxins that don't require a lifestyle overhaul or living at Trader Joe's?
The water filter is what I tell people first. They eat half and mostly plants is what I tell people second. And then I tell people, if you're worried about your pharmaceutical products, you know, click on my website, superiortoxicology.com, and click on the HOPE button, stands for Health Optimization Prescription Evaluation. Ooh. I take the time that physicians don't have to go through your drug history and present to you the questions to take back to your doctors to make them prove that you still need those drug products. A lot of people get put on statins when they get a little thick and lazy, and they call it pre-diabetic. Statins kill you. They wreck your liver. They start breaking down skeletal muscles, and as they're trying to filter out that protein, they wreck your kidneys.
Yes.
And anybody whose doctor says, I want to put you on a statin, they should say, no. Give me 5 weeks. Give me 6 weeks. I'm going to do it with diet and exercise.
Yes.
And if anybody that's on the antidepressants, I always try to figure out why. Is it a crutch? Because the antidepressants change your brain chemistry.
Yes.
And you, more times than not, you can get off an antidepressant by buying a dog.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because then you are responsible for another being on this planet.
You have to get your butt up and get out the door every day.
Exactly. It gets you off the couch and around the block.
Yes.
And the more you do that, the more you want to do that.
Yes.
Those are the simple fixes that I offer.
Oh my gosh, I love it. I just had this conversation with a very close family member who has, I mean, plenty of reasons to be sad, but I was explaining that antidepressants can only do so much. If you don't, and the hard thing I feel about
drugs are
depression, anxiety, some of these other, is the solution is the exact opposite of what you want to do.
Yeah.
You don't want to get out of bed. You don't want to exercise. You got no get up and go, no drive, no motivation. But you know what? Sometimes you have to fight through it.
You got to grab your boots by the straps and yank.
And I know, I mean, coming from me, I don't suffer from depression. So it maybe sounds callous, but honest to God, like pure spite. I have watched people get off of antidepressants and get their life together out of spite. They're like, I am not going to live on popping pills my whole life and just be a zombie.
And again, it goes back to having that mindset. There has to be a better way. I've made a good living in the pharmaceutical industry, but I'm the first one to say drugs are not the answer and drugs are evil. Because every time you swallow a pill, you give it the opportunity to do what you want it to do, and you give it multiple opportunities to do all that other stuff. Otherwise, the advertisements wouldn't have all that fast talking language.
Right. May cause a million other terrible things, but we're going to say it.
Why would anyone take it?
So now I have a question, and I hope I can put it into words that make sense. So I am approaching this from the perspective of just being a mom and watching my kids go through their neurodiversities and some of the things that they deal with. None of them are on medication, but we've been offered medication a lot, and there may still be some things that we try, but up until this point, we have kept the kids off of medication.
Right.
There has been some interesting experimentation going on with placebo effect. So we've tried various different things just to change the mindset of my kids to start thinking differently. And it's fascinating to watch and see what happens.
Yeah.
So also alongside that idea, I often see people who want to transfer their responsibility and the outcome that they're looking for onto other things. For example, I had one particular gal say that she really needed to buy new throw pillows for her bed because she wanted her bedroom to be relaxing and sensual and all those things. And she truly believed that throw pillows were going to lead to that result instead of the attitude that she took in that space.
Right.
So so I coached her and we talked to her about shifting that mindset away from a thing onto her own person, her own behaviors and attitudes and the way she set up her space. And so when it comes to drugs and toxicology and things like this, I see a lot of transference of responsibility from the individual to a drug company, to food, to everything else.
You're absolutely right.
So all of the technicalities aside, what would you recommend people do to really shift the mindset? If I can see that with the placebo effect with my children, with their neurodiversities, how can we
It holds true
trigger
for
something
adults.
in the brain? What's the placebo effect for the adults that we can start implementing on our own to start seeing the results that we want to see, to own that responsibility and that relationship with ourselves rather than outsourcing the responsibility to other people?
Absolutely. I think Heather will like this answer. I think it's a societal shift. When I was a kid and growing up, I always was outside riding the bike, riding skateboards, playing basketball, running around with the neighbor kids. And today it's much more of an information-based society where there's a lot more sitting around in front of a computer, in front of an iPad with a video game or smartwatches or smartphones or whatever. And I think the amount of activity for both children and adults is so significantly less that the physical aspects of being human are not being met, and they're looking for a crutch. And if people were able to just increase their activity, their brain chemistry would stay just fine. They wouldn't need those antidepressants. And I find that if your kids are physically tired, they're mentally sharp.
Yes.
My kids have always been in some form of activity, sports, or if it's family hikes or whatever. I was blessed. Both of my kids were swimmers. You can see one of them doing butterfly right there.
That's amazing. Yep.
Both of them were butterflyers. My son is a high-level hockey player, and my daughter is I think she's one of the best scuba divers on the planet. She goes down, comes back with more air in her tank than she went down. But if you can get people to buy into the benefits of exercise, and if they hate exercise, call it activity, call it a bike ride, call it just movement. Buy them the dog. Cats, you can't walk them around the block, and they hate you anyway.
So true.
Just a big old dog, a little dog, any kind of dog, and try to make it their responsibility. My daughter, wonderful with dogs. My son can't pick up the poop, so he can't have a dog. It's just, you got to learn the conditions of which to sell it. But I think the secret to success is infusing more activity in their daily lives.
Well, and that's what I was explaining to my family member who's severely depressed. I said, our body gets energy from movement. When you exercise, when you make your body move, it generates more energy. We have a little powerhouse in our body.
That's exactly right.
The power plant doesn't work when you're sitting on the couch.
When you're an idle 24/7.
When you're an idle, it doesn't have a reason to produce any more energy, which is why when you lay around and watch football all day on Sunday, you're like, I've taken 3 naps today and I'm so tired.
Yeah, right? Exactly.
It's because you have not fired the power plant up, and you're not creating energy within your body, within your cells.
And that could be anything. It could be gardening. It could be going bowling. It could be,
and not to mention, when you get outside,
Or,
air, the
taking
sunshine.
those friends to the mall or Costco or something. There's a lot of steps involved with some of those places that are clandestine, that people don't know they're getting them.
Yeah.
My mom, she's 80 years old and just had her second knee replaced. And she proudly sends me how many steps every day she gets.
Yeah. Movement.
Yeah, that's the key.
Yeah.
And she's now saying, because she got one knee done when she was 78 and a half and one knee done when she was 80. And she's, why'd I wait so long?
Yeah. My mom did the same thing. She has 2 brand new knees and never been better.
And she was, hey, I'm going to give this shameless plug, but she was on my favorite supplement, C60 Complete, for the second one. And there was less pain, less inflammation, and less swelling. Perfect. C60 Complete's the best antioxidant on the planet. I did a HOPE evaluation for someone that was on 12 different drugs and 17 supplements. There was 5 areas of therapy that she was duplicating with those 12 drugs. So we were able to eliminate a lot of those drugs, and all but 2 of her supplements replaced it with that. And she's doing great.
So is that your supplement then?
No. I wrote the first white paper on why it works, how it works, and what's good about it. Cool. The Live Longer Labs puts this out. And I do know the guy who put it out. He made this product for his mom, who was starting into beginning stages dementia and Alzheimer's. And she started taking the C60, carbon 60. It's an antioxidant. And the early Alzheimer's completely reversed. And his mom got 7 more years of mental clarity before other parts of her body quit. And Max is the scientist's name. He actually told me one day, he's like, that product worked so good on my mom that she got back to annoying me. And then he made it better. He added curcumin and he added black seed oil.
Perfect.
So, my mom and dad are on this product, and they think that because they take this product every day, that they haven't had any of the seasonal illnesses, and especially even the COVID. And they're and they're 80 years old and live in Morgantown, West Virginia. He was a professor at the university there after a Navy career, and so he's a doctor and just doesn't like anything. But loves this. He absolutely loves this. So that's my plug right there. I would think if anybody wants to try something that could give them more energy and relax their moods and really be organ protective, c60complete.com. You can go learn about it. And you type in the 3 ingredients, you'll get 25,000 different hits from the NIH of good products. You probably know the benefits of curcumin and the benefits of black seed oil. It's a natural product. There's centuries of experience with natural products. Western physicians are arrogant because they ignore it.
Yes.
Now, Joe, tell us your website again so people can come and find you.
My website is superiortoxicology.com.
Okay.
And you can find all about the C60 Complete, and you can find all about everything we've talked about here. And you can find the HOPE program.
The HOPE program.
It's on there too.
I think that's fantastic because I did my own research on that.
That's perfect.
I had my doctor prescribe, a whole bunch of supplements to get my mitochondria because they're like DOA for whatever reason.
Oh no.
So,
try this.
And so
Definitely.
I did a bunch of research and, I was comparing all the things I have and I was like, well, this has I was triplicating some things.
Did you have chronic fatigue syndrome?
No.
Wow.
No,
mitochondria are really good.
Fabulous. It just doesn't like to burn fuel. So long as I delicately balance what's going in and what's going out.
Well, good stuff in, good stuff out. That's the old computer programmer's rule.
My body's a science experiment in progress. So.
It looks like you're doing fine.
Well, I try. It's not for lack of effort. I'll tell you that.
I'm one of those guys that woke up one day and looked in the mirror and said, "Who's that 300-pound fat guy?" And it's like, okay, what can I do to get her away from this? So I'm doing the intermittent fasting, and I'm doing the portion control, and I'm doing the shop around the outside of the grocery store, and you eat those real foods, whole foods, raw foods, and it's the hardest thing.
I actually really love, and maybe a lot of people don't, but I love the fact that it is all encompassing and that you have to approach it from a very holistic point of view instead of just, if I just fix this one thing. it is very
It
holistic.
won't get you there.
It's not going to get you there if you only fix one thing. So
Exactly.
I actually appreciate the fact that we have to pay attention to all of the factors rather than just one thing.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely. And I'm
Dr.
happy
Joe,
I'm
thank you
happy
so
to
much.
go further into depth if your listeners say, well, let's talk about this particular thing a little deeper. Happy to do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
That sounds wonderful. Thank you so much for the excellent conversation. It's been fantastic. We would like to have you back another time to maybe dig into one area or another, because, we just don't have time to have a 3-hour discourse right now, but fascinating to think about, fascinating to talk about, and very much appreciated your time and your expertise and your knowledge. Thank you so much.
And we will get your website on the show notes so everyone can go make sure that they aren't triplicating all of their drugs.
You'd be surprised how often it happens.
Oh, it's terrible. I wouldn't be surprised, but I'm sure someone would. So it was a pleasure to have you. If you had one golden nugget of information, we call them happy hacks here, that you could give people, just the one
thing is take the first step. Decide you want to be the change and take the first step. And if you got to take the first step over and over, do it. Just keep taking the first step.
Love it. Perfect. Well, thank you so much. And we will look for you soon.